Yeah, the bar came in today. Okay, what this is a Canon supermini, more of a narrow kerf, and the tips are smaller. The radiuses are smaller. This allows you to run a lower profile chain. Now, this chain is not as robust as a regular 3/8. This 3/8 low profile. It's narrower width-wise on the teeth, and the drivers sit in the bar a little bit different. So it's actually like a 370, whereas the standard bar 3/8 bar and chain that goes on here is 375 around the nose, just the way it is. And you have to run a different sprocket. I went through that in another video. But anyways, it looks pretty nice on here. It probably lost a little bit of weight. And, you know, I'm not being paid by Steel or any of these companies. But I will say I've had a bar and I've used, and I still have the bar. And it's a good bar. I mean, I know they're pricey. People say, geez, oh, they're pricey. Yeah, you get what you pay for, you know. But anyways, I have found through the years that I usually pick up, 15 to 20%. Usually closer to 20% gains. And then you take the rowdy pipe that I put on here. That was a good 25% gainer right there. So if you get 25% from the exhaust, 20% from the different chain and sprockets bar swap, you're tickling, 45%. Now, I was shooting for 40, and we'll see. I still have to run it. But I do have a 16-inch bar off of my 261, and that'll bolt right up, and it works fine. You just need the right bar, but you need this tip for it to work. The Steel, when you buy that bar, I think that bar, Logosol used to sell them as part of a milling kit. And then a couple years ago, Steel had a performance kit where they'd give you 3 bars and a sprocket, or 3 bars. They'd give you 3 chains, a bar, and a Pico sprocket. And I did that with my 261C. So I have this style, but the Steel bar only goes out 16 inches. Okay. Now I've had, some time cuts with that versus stock. And that saw, okay, has an exhaust on it. It has the same bar and chain, but it also has some work. I did some work to the air filter, and we put a hot woods port on it. It doesn't have a rowdy pipe, but it's piped. And like I said, that thing's up there around 50, 55, 60%. So I'm figuring if this works out to where I can get, say, 40%, I'm shooting for 40, I'll be happy if I get 40. But there's still more in here, is what I'm saying. I mean, once we try it and see what our numbers are, if we want to, we could, go in here and get rid of this filter, have a custom intake for this. You'd have to cut the cover off up here somewhere, and then you'd have an air filter sticking out. And by doing that, you would pick up something. You'd have to retest it. Usually you get a couple percent out of it. But this saw here, in my estimation, it really picked up from this rowdy pipe. And there's lots of guys making pipes. I'm not the only guy that's doing this. I'm just experimenting. Some guys have some pipes that are, they're Picassos. you know, compared to this. This is just form over function for a reasonable price. And there's still work to be done. You can bolt it up and run it, but if you want to, you can get in there and file and radius and, you know, practice your porting on this, because there's probably a couple more percentages in there, maybe 3 to 5% more if you sand everything down, polish it all down, you know. But there's guys out there that are making unbelievable pipes for these things. I personally think this, and, you know, I'm tooting my own horn here, but I personally think on this saw that this pipe sounds pretty good. I think it's got a good bark to it. It's got good snap, and it pulls up top too. It takes what this saw has and thickens it up in the middle to upper, but it still has the wind out on top with the stock. So you basically just gave it a lot more torque and slightly more horsepower. It just has more ability to be dogged in and for you to grab onto the pistol grip and pull down on it. So now you put this air filter on here. We go into the cylinder and do some work to this. Yeah, you could get this up to, you know, 261, 55, 60% faster cutting. But the saw is not going to last as long. This is probably going to last the longest of all, because I haven't done any work to the cylinder, really haven't done anything to the piston. The top end, except for one time just to check things out, has never been messed with, really. The other one, I took it off and I smoothed a few things out. See, you know, and guys can argue this, but these new saws, they have these things designed from the factory. You know, there's not a lot of things that you can do like to the old saws. You really can't do it to these. The engineers have these right where they figure they can make the most power and torque and last the longest. So if you go in here and you do this, and this, like you do to an 064, this thing's probably not going to make it. You know, it's just, now, if that's what you want, I mean, if you want 60% with this chain and a port work 60% over stock, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to win any races, but you'll cut a heck of a lot of wood. The other thing is, too, is I basically just increased the flow. The auto-tune tuned itself to this pipe. And now I'm adding another 20% that I'd probably get out of playing with the cylinder. I got it on the chain. Now, I've had experience with that 261. I built it years ago. I've used this chassis on that saw. That saw's probably got somewhere around 5 horsepower, somewhere around there. But you can cut with it, and you can cut with it minute after minute, and it just gets to that point where it's warmed up, where it's run real good, and it just stays in there. You know. Same thing with this saw. I could do the same thing. Mod it in that. But this is my personal saw. Okay. I pretty much have a good idea of what I can get out of it. But it's really a newer saw. And if I achieve the 40%, or even better, if I get 45%, why not just run it? You know, why not just run it? If you basically have, you know, just as good as a good well-ported saw or machine saw, but you've never gone into the cylinder and did any work, I'd say this would be a good work saw combination. The 261's a good work saw. And like I said, I'm reasonably confident. Now, this is going to have more power. You know, this is probably putting out probably somewhere around the next class. So whatever 572 XP puts out, I don't know, 5.8 horsepower. So this thing's probably tickling somewhere around there. Okay.